Get started. Um, We'll do welcome and introductions. We'll go around the table, and then we'll do the audience. So I'm Alan Zelenka, Eugene City Councilor and Chair of MPC.
Pat Barr, Board of Lane County Commissioners, and just my usual tirade. Anybody who's drinking water out of a bottle, we have the best water in the world right in the faucets.
Sid Lycan, Lane County Board of Commissioners.
David Reeser, Lane County.
Christine Lundberg, Mayor Springfield.
John Van Gordon, Springfield City Councilor.
Tom Boyett, City of Springfield.
Gary Vanny, City of Coburg.
Pedro Sheets, City of Coburg.
Paul Thompson, Lane Council of Governments.
Brenda Wilson, Lane Council of Governments.
Bernie Brindle, ODOT.
Aurora Jackson, LTD.
Gary Wildish, LTD Board.
Gary Gillespie, LTD. Welcome to my place of employment and my LTD district.
Beth Bridges, Minutes Recorder.
Ethan Nelson, City of Eugene, City of John Reese.
Katie Piercy, Mayor of Eugene.
Eric, you want to start?
Howard Schuster, Lane Council of Governments. Carrie Rania, Lane Council of Governments.
Sasha Luffick, LTD. Denver Newland, City of Springfield.
Rob Interfeld, City of
Carleen Riley, River Road.
Jeff Green, City of Coburg.
Pam Berrien, City of Eugene. Annette Stickford, City of Springfield. Tess Fields, Mount
All right, thanks. I will entertain a motion for approval of minutes of April 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any corrections, additions, deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carries unanimously. A couple announcements for the agenda. We will be going through the MPO items first, and then we'll adjourn the MPO meeting, and then open the Metropolitan Cable Television Commission. And LTD, Coburg, and ODOT are not on that commission, so you are free to go, but you'll miss a fascinating conversation after that, after we finish with the MPO items. Anybody else got any other announcements? Gary?
I would like to say thank you to everybody who was able to come to the tour that the governor made a week ago Monday. It was a great tour, and I think the governor came away with a little information. I think she didn't realize some of the things. And a special thank you to Mayor Lundberg and Mayor Piercy for their comments and their tremendous support. Thank you.
Right. Literally a traveling show as we went on the MX, and they spoke while we were moving. Yeah, it was a really good event. Went from Springfield Station downtown to Dad's Gate at the University of Oregon, Eugene.
And I recently spent time in Washington, D.C. doing the Think Bike workshop, which is the Dutch folks that come and help you work through biking and bike safety. So I have some materials which I'm taking to OMPOC tomorrow to also share with them. So they put us on bikes and had us on sidewalks with the tourists and other scary moments. But there were lots of good ideas about how to make biking safer and a bigger part of the community. So the city staff is helping me put together some information about it, and as I say, I'll be talking about OMPOC because it may be something to consider having them come here. They're very enthusiastic about ways to deal with biking in a community.
And we'll get information via...
Yeah, I asked them, I left them my business card and asked them to send us 25 of the actual books that they have that go out, that I took as many as I felt like I wanted to carry on my carry-on bag with me and asked for them to send me the rest. So I'll send these around so you can kind of look at them now, and as I say, I'll get more.
All right. Mayor?
I just wanted to actually tell you all how proud we were of LTD. And I thought it was really kind of a moment for me to realize I didn't really know what MX was. So I think it's a very significant meeting in terms of introducing the governor to MX and what it is and what it can do, and how, and the comparison between light rail and MX. I think that was all very valuable and important information, not only for us to get the support we need to keep going, but for them to think differently about some solutions for other parts of the state. So I just wanted to express my appreciation.
Thank you.
One more thing, the Board of County Commissioners have a 1:30 Budget Committee meeting, so we'll end at 1:15. With that, comments from the audience. I didn't see anybody signed up.
There's no one signed up at this point.
Okay, does anybody from the audience want to say anything? Going, gone. Okay, we'll move on to the MPO issues. And the first item up is Connect Oregon 6. And this is about the projects that we are moving forward into and ranking them for consideration for funding. And Paul, you want to talk about the funding availability and the projects? The TPC has put forward a straw proposal, a recommendation of the rank ordering of them. The other thing we need to do is give direction to Paul about, since he's our Lane Act, where they will finalize this list. There was one project within the Lane Act, the Florence Bike Trail project, that we need to put into the mix as well to give them direction of where to place that in the priority order. All right, Paul.
Thank you. So, yes, last month you had presentations from 4 of the 5 Connect Oregon 6 applicants, and this month we are asking for you to take action to establish the formal MPO priorities for the 4 applications from within the MPO area: the Lane Transit District, Santa Clara Community Transit Center and Park and Ride, the City of Eugene Bicycle Parking Project, the City of Eugene Airport Roadway Improvements Project, and the Northwest Container Services Rail Car Modification and Upgrade. The Connect Oregon 6 program is a lottery-backed bond initiative that promotes and funds investments in air, rail, marine, transit, and bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. It cannot be used within the right-of-way. It cannot be used for anything that is highway gas tax eligible, which is right-of-way projects. It was authorized by the 2015 legislature, and there is $45 million total available statewide. Of that, at least 10% of the total, so 4.5 million, must go to each of the ODOT regions. So again, we're part of Region 2, which stretches essentially from Lane County up through Northwest Oregon, Astoria. Region 2 is guaranteed at least 4.5 million. That 10% to each of the 5 regions constitutes 50% of the funding. The other 50% of the funding, the other $22.5 million, is available for projects statewide. So hopefully Region 2 would receive more than the 10% minimum. We would hopefully get some funding out of the statewide half of the pot, if you will. Connect Oregon projects can only be funded at 70%, so there's a fairly rigorous 30% match requirement, and there's also a fair amount of reporting required with Connect Oregon, and the payments are not fully made, or the reimbursements are not fully made until there's complete reporting and performance of the project. So it's one of the more rigorous competitive grant projects in the state. This time around in Connect Oregon 6, ODOT received 78 applications totaling just over $90 million, so twice the available funding, not unusual. This time in Lane County, there were 5 applications received, the 4 that I mentioned from within the MPO, and then the 5th one you did have a presentation on last month, which was the Florence Trail project. Again, we're asking you today to rank the 4 MPO projects, and that'll be your formal action. I will also, after that, ask you for informal direction on how to place the Florence project within those 4 when I represent you at the ACT meeting next month, or next week. As Councilor Zelinka noted, my cover memo has the Transportation Planning Committee, the Staff Advisory Committee recommendation for the MPO ranking, which is number 1, the Transit District Project, number 2, the City of Eugene Bicycle Parking Project, number 3, the City of Eugene Airport Project, and number 4, the Northwest Container Services Project. Staff looked at a number of things, including the rankings that are reflected in the attachment by the statutory and economic benefit criteria, the statewide modal committee rankings, which ranked within the modes, the Freight Advisory Committee rankings, again, statewide freight rankings where applicable if it was a freight project or had freight components to it. And then the staff also considered the strategy for moving these priorities through the act and, more importantly, perhaps, to the Region 2 Super Act. The Super Act is when all of the acts within Region 2 get together and establish their priorities for that minimum $4.5 million of funding. The Lane Transit District project is recommended as the number one project for this MPO. The bicycle parking project is recommended at this time as number 2, and the airport project as number 3. Staff recognized that this body last month expressed a lot of interest in the airport project, and we understand that you may want to consider the relative order of the priorities there. We were looking as staff strategically at the Eugene Bicycle Parking Project and felt that it was a stronger project regionally within Region 2 than the airport project. When you look at some of the relative rankings of the aviation and the bike ped projects, I can speak to that in more detail if you like, but again, we felt strategically it was a stronger project within the mode. We also felt that the Lane Transit District project is a relatively large ask, so putting a smaller ask as number 2, the bike parking project, was perhaps a better strategic move. Speaking to the Lane Transit District project, not only is it a strong project and a regional priority that staff recommends here, but you may note on, again, this attachment, which is all of the Region 2 projects, that at the bottom, it is the only transit project submitted within all of Region 2. So, although there is no modal split for Connect Oregon, there's not a dedicated amount to transit or a dedicated amount to bike ped, one of the goals of Connect Oregon is to have regional and modal equity. It's not, again, a targeted amount per mode or per region, but it is an ideal to have some sort of regional and modal equity. And since this is the only transit project in the entire region, we feel it could receive strong support by the region as well as from this MPO. I'm happy to answer any more questions, but again, we are asking for you to formally approve a priority ranking of the 4 projects.
All right. So we'll go off of the straw poll or the recommendation from TPC, and people could speak to if they'd like to any changes to that priority order of the LTD project, the Eugene Bike Parking Project, third would be the Eugene Airport Project, and the fourth would be Northwest Container.
Anybody want to speak to changing that? Or have any questions about any of the projects? Yeah.
So I'm sorry I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I would like to understand, and I know you had this discussion, how important the airport is to our whole area, and I'd just like a better understanding of the importance of this ask in terms of our regional economic being.
I can address a little bit about that. I don't know if the city of Eugene, either Ethan or Rob want to address that. We did have the Eugene Airport represented here last month, and they spoke to the project. Clearly, the Eugene Airport project is a regional priority. It does serve more than just the city of Eugene. It serves quite a bit of Southwest Oregon. One of the things, again, in looking at the aviation projects, the 5 aviation projects, the city of Eugene Airport project ranked 24 out of 26 by the Freight Committee, which was fairly low, and ranked 19 out of 24, which was the lowest ranking of the 5 aviation projects in Region 2. So while recognizing that 2 and 3 as the TPC staff recommendation were very close locally as priorities, we felt that strategically the bike parking might have a stronger chance because the Super Act at the region level tends to look at the statewide rankings because they're moving it then to the statewide consideration. And in looking at the statewide rankings, again, of the 5 aviation projects, the Eugene one unfortunately ranked the lowest.
I'll spend some more time looking at that, thank you.
Yeah, it's more of a strategic issue than a priority issue.
Right.
About how to get funding. And the bike parking one was actually second in its group of bike ped in that group.
Yes.
And it's a lot smaller. It's only 48,000. Good.
So the last meeting, I suggested that the city of Eugene, with the airport project, that they get a letter from Travel Lane County. And do we know if we've received that letter, or if that letter is going to be part of the packet going up to Super Act? Because again, I think if you emphasize 2021 World Games, I think it gives it a little bit more attention on how important this is for this region. So maybe if the city of Eugene can follow up on this to make sure that this letter, there's a letter from Travel Lane County that goes up to the Super Act, so they get an understanding how important any sort of investment is to our airport will be, because this 5 years is going to be coming up real quickly, before we know it.
I'm not aware of that letter yet. I don't know.
I suggested we do it, and
Right,
I asked for that, and, okay, if we can just follow up with that.
That's a good idea.
I can do that. I'll follow up with David directly.
And again, I'll just emphasize that the staff committee noted during their process at arriving at the recommendation, and wanted me to emphasize here, that really those two, the two Eugene projects, were very much equal as far as a local priority, but the strategic considerations, the potential for the Super Act to look not only at the statewide rankings, but the relative amounts of the asks.
Mayor Piercy?
So this is fine. My comment is that maybe we need to have a little more in-depth conversation about the airport at this, at our meeting here sometime, because I think we end up looking at projects, but I think we need to be looking, and in other places, there are other conversations, of course, going on, but I do, when I go to these other meetings and I hear Corvallis longing to use our airport more, and I hear that one of the things that gets in the way of some businesses deciding to be here is our airport, and I know that our chambers pay attention, I know everybody pays attention, but I'm just thinking we as a body ought to maybe have more strategic discussion ourselves about how to keep moving our airport forward.
Mayor Lundberg?
I couldn't agree more. I think ever since we had our last big economic summit, and that's one of the, issues for those that come from particularly bigger metropolitan areas, is you get to our airport and it's small, and it has a limited number of flights in and out, that to become a better regional entity for the entire state, we're going to have to very seriously look at the airport. I noted at the last Lane Act meeting that there were maybe a little bit of, why would this be so important? So I think part of the conversation we need to have is, why is it significant to have a very robust airport that people can get in and out of and up and down the corridor? So I just, I was thinking the act had good questions about the airport project, but they would be ones that need to be addressed in a broader conversation.
Yep. Sure, Mayor. And then Pat.
I'm sorry, Pat, maybe.
Gary.
Pat first?
Go ahead.
I was going to say something that we don't have a precedent for doing, but this might be a worthy discussion to maybe, I don't know, bring the ACT and the MPC together over, and maybe it would be a worthy discussion to have more of a work session as opposed to a regular type of meeting, and I just want to put that out because I think it's important enough for us to have a robust discussion, and it would be really smart of us not to just have it for our metro area, but to have it a broader discussion about how our airport affects the lives of all these communities around us. So I want to support that.
Yeah, I just, would pass along accolades that I receive all the time regarding traveling from and to our airport. If you ever travel at other airports, you know, if you live in Wilsonville, you're better off coming to Eugene to fly if you can get a fly than going to Portland to fly, quite frankly. And more and more people are realizing that, and we're getting more and more flights all the time there. But the question that I have, and this is a question that probably nobody here can answer at this point in time, is Eugene is a municipal airport, but it really serves as a regional airport. And I don't know if when we're applying for grants and for consideration, the fact that it's a municipal airport, is that something that is detrimental as compared to the fact that it really does serve a regional area? And it is a function of the city of Eugene. So I guess that's something that we should discuss at some point in time, whether it be the act or a combined meeting of the MPO and the act or some other body entirely. But I've been hearing that question more and more, and I have no answer for people. You know, if we go and say we would like to have improvements at Eugene's airport, the municipal airport, as compared to the Eugene, Springfield, Lane County Metropolitan Regional Airport Authority. Yeah.
LA doesn't have any problem.
I know it's a municipal airport, but when, my understanding is when they put in for grants, especially from FAA, they talk about the regional significance of the airport, because it is the regional airport.
The regional significance of the Eugene Airport, right.
Right. Gary and then Franny.
Paul, even as a regional airport, that whole jurisdiction is still Region 2, isn't it? It wouldn't change the application process, right?
No, that's a different sort of regional consideration.
So what I'm thinking is what we're doing here is we're actually germinating some seeds down the road to move the Eugene Airport roadway improvements up the ladder higher as we get closer to 2021. I mean, you don't want to turn into Montreal, where you build an Olympic stadium that falls apart in 5 years. But if the improvements have a lasting value as opposed to just a 2 or 3 week event in 1 year, I think that's real important. So it sounds like what we're talking about is increasing the importance of that as we go along, say next year or the year after.
Franny and then Ethan.
I just have a question. I know for the first time on the Connect Oregon applications, the regional solution teams were supposed to weigh in, so we had the modal committee as well as the RST, and I apologize for missing the last MPC and Elaine Act, but I was wondering if those RST, if that input had been received.
It has been, and I'm sorry I don't have that in front of me right now. I left my 1,000-page packet back at the office this time of all of the applications, but yes, that was in there. I would have to check on, again, that information for this project.
Yeah, I'd be curious because I know that the regional solution team very much is interested in the Eugene Airport and really doing a, travel shed approach to trying to market that more broadly. I'd be interested to see what they thought about that application.
Ethan?
Yeah, just in terms of Commissioner Lyken's request, the letter was actually presented at the Lane Act, and
Okay, good.
there was both a letter from the Traveling County and also the Eugene Chamber, and then I just forward those to you as well. So,
Thank you.
Good. Done.
I had to miss the Lane Act, so that's why.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to say one more comment about the
Thank you.
Eugene Airport. For my work, I've traveled all over the West and go to a lot of airports, and the Eugene Airport is just really a spectacular facility, and with the new improvements and the expansion that they're going to have, make it even that much better. And it's really actually a pleasure to go in and out of it, and so much better than so many other communities that have so much more money and so much many more people, that it really is a primo facility. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion for adoption of the 4 applications in order suggested by TPC.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? With that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carries unanimously. Paul, you want to talk about the Florence project, and maybe during this conversation, we consider what you were going to say?
That is a good point. Thank you. I will start with what TPC indicated, which is if you retained the order as indicated, again, looking strategically as well as other considerations, If you look at the statewide rankings, the City of Florence Bike Ped Trail Project ranked 19 out of 22, and the City of Eugene Bicycle Parking Project ranked 11 out of 22. So the Florence project was not only on the statewide committee, but on the points for the statutory and economic review total, significantly lower than the bike parking project. So we felt it should be no higher than number 3 out of the 5 projects. In other words, between the 2 City of Eugene projects that you just established as number 2 and 3. Again, given the conversation just now, where you may choose to direct me to have it land relative to the Eugene Airport project is something that I would look for your input on right now. And there will be further testimony offered at the Lane Act meeting next week. There will be a public hearing as well as further discussion by the Act, so I certainly will take that into consideration also.
Okay. So where do you want to put this is the question. After the bicycle project or after the airport project? So this is direction to Paul about where he should vote when the full act will vote. Gary?
I would move to put it after the bike parking project. So number 3 in the queue.
Okay.
Second.
Any other discussion about that? Mayor?
I guess my only question is, I think we're not as much talking about the importance as we are the strategy. What's the best
Funding strategy.
funding strategy? So I'd like to understand the funding strategy case for it.
Well, again, it has been the experience of myself and others who have been at some of these Region 2 Super Act meetings that they not only consider the priorities established by the Act, but as things, start getting established or start getting put into a straw order at the Super Act, they also look at the statewide strength. And the statewide strength is important because it very well may be that by the time we get down to the level of considering this project or this level of priority, that the Super Act has already, if you will, spent or allocated the $4.5 million minimum that the region is guaranteed, especially, to be honest, with the LTD project asking for $3.5 million. And so at that point, once you've gotten past the Region 2 guaranteed minimum of $4.5 million, you're really competing at the statewide pot level. You're really competing for that other $22.5 million that has to be allocated statewide. You're really trying to get it to be a priority for a statewide final review committee that I believe is meeting in June at this time. I think it's scheduled in June. And that committee tends to look at the modal committees that have already considered all the projects statewide. The Florence project was not as strong statewide as the Eugene project. Relative to the airport, that's a little bit harder to say. And again, sorry, the Florence project was not as strong as the Eugene bicycle parking project. Relative to the airport project, it is a little bit harder to compare those apples and oranges, but again, the Eugene Airport Roadway Improvements Project ranked 19 out of 24 statewide in aviation and 24 out of 26 statewide on freight. Not very well, at least by those statewide committees. And again, it's been my experience that not just the Super Act, once it gets beyond its guaranteed minimum, but certainly the statewide final review committee in June places a little more weight on these statewide rankings. That's not to say that we could not advocate for the Eugene Airport project, and I think there's an opportunity right now because of its significance for 2021, because of its significance as more than just a municipal airport, but as a regional airport. I would also hope that if it was not funded this time, that there will be a Connect Oregon 7. I think there's a fairly good likelihood of that, and in 2 years, it may indeed, as you indicated, be setting the stage for funding it in the next round.
All right. Any further conversation about that? All those in favor of putting it third behind the Eugene bike parking proposal? Say aye.
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 All those opposed? Carries unanimously.
Did I say something?
Yeah, Mayor.
I just, when I think about this and the conversation we had about the airport, I think there is an opportunity for us to better prepare ourselves to advocate for what we need in preparation for the next round. So I just sort of take from this that maybe the airport needs more from us in terms of getting ready to make the case. So I'm looking at this as our opportunity to step up too.
Yeah, good point.
We can certainly reach out to the airport and pass that message along. We can also work with ODOT regarding the act and perhaps you doing something jointly. As has been mentioned already today, there was a fair amount of interest at the act last month about the Eugene Airport project, and that interest was perhaps more in the manner of questions about, what is this? Why is it Connect Oregon? Why, I'm not saying it was negative, but it was more a lack of understanding that I think we could address through the suggestions that you've made.
Okay. On to the next item 6B, draft Central Lane MPO Unified Planning Work Program 27 or FY17 addendum. If you recall, last year we actually approved the full UPWP, and this is the slimmed down version, which only is the addendum, and it just adjusts the timing and details of projects. So it's not the full approval, it's just the changes that are associated with the last year's approval of the bigger plan, which is much, much thicker. It met the 1-inch test, as I recall. Paul?
Thank you. Yes, again, as Councilor Zelenka just mentioned, last year you approved a new 2-year unified work program that covers fiscal years 16 and 17 this fiscal year and next fiscal year. We do a 2-year work program so that we don't have to review the entire full document and everything every single year. But because of the fluidity of the work program and because of the fact that the work program funding is only approved by the Oregon Transportation Commission 1 year at a time, we do have to do some action on these, if you will, interim years. And that action is usually this addendum where, again, the work program being fluid, certain things will change as we approach the second fiscal year from how we anticipated them a year ago when you first approved the work program. For instance, when you approved the work program last year, we anticipated starting this fiscal year on an update of the MPO's Intelligent Transportation System Plan. Because of some issues around the timing of our launch update cycle and some other things that arose, we have actually put that off till next year. So the ITS plan currently in the UPWP is not reflected appropriately in how it's going to play out. This addendum changes that so it's reflected as starting next fiscal year. There's also some changes in the local projects. I would say a significant part of this addendum is changes in some of the work by point to point and how the timing of that has played out. Some of the special projects that you'll see back on the last nearly half of this, starting on page 17 of the attachment, is really the input by the local jurisdictions about how some of the local projects, or what we call special projects in the UPWP, have either shifted in timing, scope, or cost, or really are new additions to the UPWP that were not anticipated a year ago. And the purpose for getting them in the UPWP is threefold. 1, so that they're eligible for using federal funding. 2, so that if it's a reasonably significant project, it meets the federal requirements for putting them in here and being transparent about it. And 3, so that there's more coordination in the planning and the work on these projects. Again, there are some new additions to this. The City of Coburg has added a regional bike hub design standards project for the second year of the work program that was not in the work program you adopted a year ago, and other examples. I'd be happy to talk about details, and the jurisdictions that have made changes can. We're not asking for action today. This is simply because we need to have it out there for public review and for you to consider and provide any feedback today. We will ask for adoption of this addendum next month.
Right. So anybody have any comments or questions? Mayor Lindberg?
Under point-to-point options, and that's on page 14. When I was reading through it, because I'm always going to focus on this one, is how much money, how many people, what changes did actually occurred, because I know that the lump sum amount of money that we spend on the program is fairly significant, and there, to me, is still a little bit of a, okay, we did this, and this. How many people actually, one, participated, how much change in behavior? Because that's really what we're aiming at is we want to get people out of cars, we want to get people onto alternative modes of transportation. We want to be able to encourage other kinds of activities. So I know that it's in here under develop annual report of program outcomes. So that's part of what I would want to see. Because somewhere in there, if you were in a kind of a business model, you would go, okay, we spent this much, and this number of people actually participated, so that you could do a per person, which is probably not entirely feasible to do. Okay, so we spent this much, and this many people suddenly rode the bus, or they rode a bicycle. That you can't track that for sure. But as best as possible, let's see what's the bang for the buck in terms of the program as a whole, so that we can make better decisions about, what's working, or, other creative solutions, because I've been at some events where they're not really well attended. So if we're spending money on them, I would like to see a higher attendance or higher participation, or whatever the program is. That I think can get captured a little bit, but two, if this one's working, this one's not working, is have a sense of what are we doing, and then doing better the next time around.
If I may, the transportation options as a area of transportation planning and as a transportation program is one of the more challenging ones to have performance metrics for and performance reporting for, because it is more challenging to make that direct link between what is happening and changes in behavior. However, that said, this body several years ago indicated that the MPO funding to the Regional Transportation Options Program needed to remain static until there were additional performance measures established and more indications of the bang for the buck, if you will. And that work is ongoing. It is also ongoing at the state level. Just about a year ago, the state adopted the first DOT level transportation options program in the country. And right now there's a statewide committee working on implementing or developing statewide performance measures that will be incumbent on each of the TO programs in the state to report on, because not only does the MPO provide funding to point, but so does ODOT. And ODOT's funding is roughly 1/4 of the funding for point to point. The MPO's funding is roughly the other 3/4, aside from special project funding that they receive. We understand that we need to continue to improve the ability to track the effectiveness of that funding. Point to Point has provided to you annual reports on their work program and on some of the special or individual programs within the TO, like the Safe Routes to Schools annual report that you saw several months ago. But we do intend to be trying to ramp that up and develop new performance measures that give you a better indication of that performance or that bang for the buck. Again, it's challenging, but I think maybe what we can do is it's just about time. The statewide committee that's developing the statewide performance measures is getting very close to a draft, so I think we should be scheduling for you a presentation on what those statewide measures are and how they might assist you in looking at the effectiveness of our program.
Thank you.
Gary and then Franny.
Yeah, great question. And we had a presentation, point to point, at our last board meeting that responded to some of those. But it's significant that, your comments, Paul, it's interesting information. It is, I got a sense of it positive.
Yeah.
But I think that the information that Teresa could provide could be helpful to your question, because you're right on. That's very important. Thank you.
Franny?
Well, I have a quick comment about point-to-point, but I also wanted to bring up another issue in the work plan. So after I make my point-to-point comment, if anybody wants to stay with the point-to-point, then I can give my other comment later. Yeah, I do think that point-to-point provides great value, and looking at, state, region-wide with the other transportation option organizations, with Salem and other places on Sunset, I guess the Coast is another group, Corvallis. This one, LTD's program, has more stuff going on, more things in the, stirring in the pot and more actions, which is why the region is looking at, upping their quarterly amount. Right now, we're considering that. Because, and then I've been working with our transit provider, our transit coordinator who oversees all the programs, and he is going to look at the share that goes to LTD more closely, because right now it's just like it's a level split, even split between all the programs. But he says, for all the programs that point-to-point does, maybe we ought to just, bump that up a little bit. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, I'll just comment on that. We had a report a couple of months ago from Safe Routes to Schools, and we asked them about the numbers and number of people that were, especially kids that were using that program, and how much more they were riding their bikes and walking, and it was pretty impressive, as I recall. A really good program in terms of getting results of getting kids safely to school, but on a bike ped modes as well. Anything in that?
If I just may
Sure.
add that we're currently at point-to-point, the Business Commute Challenge, so hopefully you are all involved in
Right, this is sweet.
that. Business Commute Challenge is proving to be very successful, and I don't know if any of you have noticed the hike in all the bikes around town through your morning and evening commute, but it's really noticeable during my commute, so. just wanted to-
Franny, your other issue?
Yeah, I was just, I know that when the FHWA did their review of the program, it was all real positive, and we met all the criteria, or with all the auditing points. But they had made a recommendation, and I don't know if this committee has considered it or talked about it in the past, being that I'm relatively new compared to some of you and not all of you, about the idea of bringing the university a member from the university to the board. It was just a recommendation from Federal Highway. I'm sure you've probably discussed and considered it in the past, I don't know. But was thinking that with the 2021 games coming up, with the, how the university and LTD worked so well together at that last week's outreach event. And it might be useful to consider. That was the only thing that was not in the plan I noticed, but was a recommendation.
If you recall, I did, we provided the certification review report, which is what Franny's referring to last month. And I don't believe you were present, and that was one of the recommendations I highlighted, was that a suggestion by USDOT was to involve the U of O more in the MPO planning process. Again, not necessarily the policy board, although that could be an option, either as an ad hoc non-voting member or some other representation at this body, but certainly in the planning process. And we have connections with the university in the MPO planning process currently. They certainly have been involved in the bicycle and pedestrian programs, very close. We have worked with them on some other projects. Those have been more the ad hoc or, standalone planning projects, as opposed to the overall regional planning process. So I think we definitely are going to take a close look at that.
Any other comments? All right. Hearing none, let's move on to the next items. So the follow-up items, and Franny, you want to do ODOT update?
Oh, sure. So adding on to the Connect Oregon discussion and ranking and everything else, the Connect Oregon Regional Review Committee will occur on May 25th in Salem at 1 p.m., and that's where our Lane Act chair and co-chair will be invited with the other Act chairs and co-chairs, and talking about the Connect Oregon ranking for our region. So that'll be at the end of May. As was mentioned at the last meeting, I have a new planner coming on board. His name is Bill Johnston, and he has been a planner in Region 2 for about 5 years. And before that, actually is in Area 1 in the Astoria office, so he has a lot of ODOT experience. He did really well from what I understand in the interview. Prior to his work with ODOT, he's been with Vancouver, Washington, and Denver Regional Council of Governments as a planner. So he has lots of great experience, and I'm looking forward to being fully staffed. And as you know, that position helps me staff the Lane Act and also attends this meeting with me. So that's all I have. Oh, wait, one more big thing, sorry. Beltline Unit 4, which is the last phase of the interchange project at I-5 and Beltline, will be hitting the ground next week. We have Farline Bridge that's doing the project. We had our pre-construction meeting this week. They're all on board and excited to be working in Eugene with all of you and for all of you. This project will be connecting the eastbound Beltline to the north and southbound I-5 ramps. The first work that they'll be doing is the pile driving for the bridges. The bridge that's going to be the one that connects to northbound I-5, so it will not affect traffic movement. The traffic impacts overall will be slight. The good news that we have from the contractor is in their staging, they're pushing up the walls, the noise walls, along, so on the south side of Beltline for that community, that North Harlow community, they'll be getting their noise walls sooner than expected. It will be more like this fall rather than next year, which will be a great thing for them. It'll mean a little impacts in backyards, but all in all, they'll have nice sound walls that will help with the traffic noise. And the next phase that we'll be working on, and in fact is in design currently, is the Delta interchange on Beltline. CH2 Hill has the award for that, and we're working with Lane counties on that project teams, and Eugene should be as well, but it'll be interchange improvements at Delta Beltline. That's all.
And your office space?
Oh, yeah, another big thing. I haven't been here for a little while. Okay, yes. So we are, our lease is up with the building that we're in. LCOG sold the building to the Springfield School District, and we need to be out by the end of the year. And so we just set a contract to build a new building for us that we will lease again, because our Gateway building is currently occupied by OSP, and we needed a place to go. So the building will be constructed on Laura Street in the city of Springfield, where there was a radio facility, transmitter facility. It's a great connection to I-105 and I-5. It's bikeable. It's a little bit further for some of us, but there is a nice, safe route to get there by bikes and other options, and we're excited about getting a new building. So we hope to be in there in time. That's all I have.
STIP non-highway enhance? Who's doing that?
I don't know if there's an update from us.
Is there anything, no update on that?
Frankly, there has been no
No action.
change yet.
Yeah, no action.
On the legislative update, anybody have anything legislative, Ethan or anybody else? Paul?
I guess the one thing I will mention that somewhat ties into that, or maybe two things, is I did send an email to you a couple of days ago about an event coming up here in Eugene on Wednesday, May 25th at 4:30 downtown Lane Community College. Transportation for America is having an event with their policy director. Just wanted to remind you of that. The other thing that ties into that is that efforts to put together a package for the 2017 Oregon legislature for transportation are well underway. You are probably aware that there is a legislative committee that has been appointed meeting monthly through the fall to develop a package. The Oregon Transportation Forum is also well underway in developing a package and looking at options for a significant funding package. I will give more reports on that as we get a little bit further into it, and the Oregon MPO Consortium meeting tomorrow, we'll hear more about that. In particular, perhaps partnering as OMPOC with one or more of the other entities like Association of Oregon Counties and or the Oregon Transportation Forum to be a strong voice for a significant package at the 2017 legislative session. The other thing I might mention with respect to legislation, a little bit related to that, I can't think of where else to fit it in, is that the US DOT under MAP 21, as you know, established a lot of performance-based planning requirements, and they've been very slowly rolling out the guidelines for those things. If you will, the legislative intent and the guidelines of how the MPOs are supposed to establish performance-based planning. Perhaps the most significant portion of those just came out recently, and it's the system performance, freight performance, congestion performance measures. OMPOC's going to be talking about these again tomorrow, and one of the goals there is to encourage all of the MPO policy boards to weigh in during the comment period that currently runs through mid-August. So we will be bringing an item to you on that next month, because it's fairly important to us if we have to establish performance measures around congestion and freight and the performance of the highway system.
What time is that Transportation for America meeting on the 25th?
It is at 4:30 p.m. across the street here at the LCC Center.
Tom?
To tag on to what Paul said about the state's transportation package and the governor's clear leadership of that package, through the League of Oregon Cities, we're understanding that in the upcoming legislative days in May, which I'm not sure exactly when those are, that there will be committees taking input on transportation needs in Oregon. And the guidance that we're getting is bring our stories, actual stories about need, as a way to make the problem more real. Saying that we're $1 billion behind just sort of conceptualizes this thing and makes it hard to grasp. But coming from the perspective of what are the actual stories in the towns and counties in Oregon, and having some folks be willing to come forward and share those stories at this first kind of open forum for the dialogue. Excuse me.
Good point.
So we'll try to get that date nailed down and shared.
Right. And bears noting that the whole point of the governor's trip down here to LTD was to kick off the whole transportation package conversation and move that forward. So, all right, Springfield Main Street safety update.
Well, I'll look to Tom and Franny a little bit, but I know there's 2 more crossings going in, and what I want to say about the crossings is when we first started sticking them, probably all of us started sticking the yellow flashing, whatever I can remember what they're called. I call them yellow flashing, everybody knows what I'm talking about, is that I heard lots of feedback, because anything that's unfamiliar elicits a lot of responses from people. Oh, I don't know what to do, I'm supposed to slow down but not stop, but somebody's crossing the street. So that has died down, and part of me says the more we stick in, the better, because they become much more familiar to people, they understand how to use them, and they're going in nicely, they're well seen at night. So the idea that 2 more, and you probably more familiar, because I know one of them is way east now that's going in.
We're looking at installing the last 2 locations, one at 48th and Main and one at Chapman and Main. And those will go in this summer. And then there's discussions yet to be had with ODOT about doing some form of crossing improvement east of 126 and Bob Straub, further out towards the urban growth boundary, where the speeds are posted even higher and people are coming in from the McKenzie River Valley and making that rural to urban transition right at the edge of the city.
So the other piece to that is we're in the middle of, one, we have a new TGM grant, but we also are in the middle of our looking at an MX corridor, or MX enhanced / no. We're looking at that first phase, and now business owners have been contacted, and I said, send out the maps, put the lines out there, go ahead, send it out. We'll see how people, if you want them to talk to you, that's the way to do it. So we're in that phase, but part of our goal is safety improvements with any of the improvements we do along Main Street. So it's a significant, it's 7 miles worth of project area, so that doesn't even count McVeigh. So anyway, but one of our highest priorities is improving safety along the entire corridor. So
I would just follow up. Our staff has made close to 400 phone calls, and made every attempt to contact every business address on Main Street from in the project impact area. We've followed up with the offers to meet one-on-one with business owners and property owners, and we've conducted over 35 of those meetings. The maps, the lines on the maps letter is in the process of being mailed out of LTD this week, and the expectation is that the phone's going to ring. So that will give us an increased opportunity to sit down with more folks, and we're hoping that's, that eventually we're having face-to-face conversations and getting information and understanding impacts and looking at design solutions with it, maybe as much as a third of the businesses in the corridor, which is really a staggering amount of one-on-one contact. And I participate in a lot of those. We're being very well received, respected for the outreach. Their folks are very appreciative that this is occurring. The range of feedback that we're getting is, from one bookend to the other, everything you can imagine. I won't go into that at this point. We're briefing the council on it 2 weeks from now. But it's
I've heard.
Yes, it's been really very exciting to get to the ground level and start talking really to everyone. And our hope is that that leads to a better outcome.
All right. Thanks. Mayor Piercy, rail update.
So as you know, we finished the preferred alignment process, and they're just doing the last parts of that now. So nothing has happened more with that. But I did want to let you know that it's, as we move toward the next legislative session and the transportation package, it's going to be really important that rail is in that transportation package just to keep the train rolling. So, and we're all going to have to be pretty robust about that, because they're still having to work hard on the on-time thing, and the you can't build your ridership if you're not on time. You can't be on time if you have to, if the freight moves you out of the way. So it's all of those things. So then we had a thing at the federal level where they tried to make a maneuver to, because the current law is that passengers are supposed to get priority. Yeah. And they tried to change that at the federal level and say that the rail lines could do whatever they wanted. And so we have everybody from every place got heard from, and we got rid of that proposal so that we're back where we were. So it's challenging, it's important. It's important that freight runs, it's important that passenger runs, and at some point, if we get, in my opinion anyway, if we get to a place where we're able to manage this whole thing better, then I think we can have those bigger conversations about out in the future, when do we make a decision to separate lines and things like that. But you can't do that until you make what you're doing work. So that's the case, yep.
Just because I want to bring it, because we talked about rail in 2021, because we probably aren't going to build a bigger airport in the meantime, and we probably won't get our lines separated. But it's such a big deal, too, right, because people will fly into Portland, how to get them up and down the freeway.
And we are having a meeting with Carmen and others to talk about how we really make use of the passenger rail. And I tend to look at these things as an opportunity, and that you can get people to use the rail more and really help build that ridership. I will continue to push on that Travel Lane and Travel Oregon ought to be thinking about how to sell this. People that are coming from around the world actually know how to ride the rail, and we should be reaching out to them with some really good packaging for why they would use our rail system. So that could really launch, actually, future packages for many other things, because people do, I think of people from Korea, people from Japan, Sister City people, all of those kinds of things. They actually, as you well know, have terrific rail systems, and it would be very appealing to them to come to Oregon and Washington and ride the rail and get to see this part of the country. So having us really pay attention to that and nurture that could really solve a lot of the problems we have with making our passenger system really work for the state. And I think we have to take a giant leap in that direction, and there's no reason why that shouldn't be us trying to make that happen. So.
Well, and according to Ben, he has pictured, I'll call them party trains, for the 2021 games, that you have entertainment, and you have all kinds of things going on.
And LGD goes over and meets the train and gets people to, and so those conversations, I think, are well underway. That sort of scaled up conversation, which includes the party sort of stuff, but also includes really making this an appealing and robust place for people to travel to.
Okay. Lane Act update.
Yeah, so we'll be meeting next Wednesday night for the Lane Act. One of the things we'll do, of course, is we just talked about earlier, is having the Connect Oregon application ranking and the public hearing about that. We'll be talking about a co-chair, because right now we have a vacancy in the Lane Act where we need a co-chair, so we'll be talking about how to move that forward. And as a new and exciting update, Director Matt Garrett will be addressing the Lane Act at the beginning of the meeting. So he'll be talking about legislation in the future, and he also wants to hear how the Lane Act is doing and how, get issues and concerns. So look forward to that. That's next week.
You could make it known that the pool of applicants for the co-chair are those who aren't there, and that would entice people to come.
The old appoint by absenteeism.
Yeah. That's how most people become co-chair. Agenda build, we got the airport presentation, maybe with the Lane Act. Anybody else got anything for that? All right. With that, I will close the MPC meeting and excuse the LTD, Coburg, and ODOT people if they would like to leave. And I will open the Metropolitan Cable Television Commission with voting members from Eugene, Lane County, and Springfield. And we have a presentation by Gary Darnell and about the franchise fee review of Comcast by our auditor. Oh, Gary, you know how to clear a room.
I'm used to that. As Brenda explained, I'm Milo Meacham for the day. Unfortunately, my wife wouldn't let me grow a beard, so my disguise is and as a matter of full disclosure, I wasn't privy to the conversations that Milo and your staff had with Comcast officials during the review. So I'm basically summarizing the memo that he authored, as well as a few discussions we had before he took off to Ashland for some Shakespearean plays. In the fall of 2013, the Cable Commission directed staff to begin a review of the cable franchise with Comcast. The review is a prelude to a 3-year period of renewal of the 10-year franchise agreement. So that renewal will begin in August of this year. The review covered basically 4 things generally: franchise fees, quality of service, customer satisfaction, and compliance with the provisions of the franchise agreement. In terms of franchise fees, staff contracted with a New York accounting firm, Ashbaugh and Schuylkill, to do a review, not an audit, of the gross revenue of Comcast during the period of, I believe, October 1st, 2001 through September 30th of 2013. Basically a 5-year period of the gross revenues. The results of this review, which are attached to Milo's memo, basically concludes that cumulatively, the three jurisdictions were underpaid about $390,000 in franchise fees during that period of time. The review said basically that was because of, in some cases, clerical error, accounting methods for multiple service revenues, high-speed data revenues, non-subscriber revenues such as tower rental and advertising revenues. But the big one was, of course, under-reporting of franchise fees. Cable companies are allowed by law to pass on the franchise fee that's charged by local governments. So on your cable bill, if you receive Comcast television service, cable television service, there's a line item for franchise fees. It's a pass-through charge. What the accounting firm found or concluded was that in terms of make up for the franchise fee, Charter actually charged a little bit extra each time. So the difference between what the actual franchise fee was and what they charged was gross revenue that wasn't reported and therefore wasn't reflected in the franchise fees.
Comcast. You said Charter.
Oh, I'm sorry. I spend most of my work with Charter, not Comcast. So that was the reason for the underpayment, according to the accounting firm. The second area, quality of service, focused on signal quality. It's common practice of cable companies to compress their signals to make more room for other television channels or data or phone service. However, if you overcompress the channels, you've basically degraded the quality of the service. Some independent experts have reported to us anyway that Comcast has overcompressed some of the channels that bring in low revenue. Milo indicated to me that...
Independent experts?
Yes, and I don't know who they are.
Don't know who they are.
No. He indicated that there wasn't a discussion that Comcast wanted to have with staff on that issue. But again, once you get into franchise renewal discussions, everything opens up. The third area that the review covered was consumer satisfaction, and that focused on complaints. Comcast reported that they basically didn't have any complaints, but what happens is that the complaints go to the local jurisdictions, because if you look at your cable bill, the local jurisdictions number is at the top, and people will call that number. When those complaints come in, your staff then in turn pass those complaints on to Comcast. Apparently, there hasn't been a record of those complaints kept, even though that's a provision in the franchise agreement. And the franchise agreement also calls for a satisfaction survey to be conducted by Comcast. I'm not sure that's due yet, but it has to occur during the duration, sometime during the duration of the franchise agreement. And finally, we looked at, the review covered franchise compliance, and that had to do primarily with emergency access. There's a provision in the franchise agreement that provides that in case of emergencies, community-wide disasters, that Comcast will make its facilities available for our emergency use. In discussions with Comcast, they indicated they have neither policies nor equipment ready to allow for our law enforcement personnel or emergency personnel to use their cable system for those purposes. So that's clearly an issue that will be discussed during the renewal. Staff is asking basically two motions from the commission. One is to authorize its staff to work in conjunction with your staff to take steps to collect the unpaid franchise fees, which include interest as well as penalties. and the cost of the review, which was $35,000 with the accounting firm. Comcast has said, well, no, we don't owe you any money for that because that was an audit. It really wasn't an audit. An audit would look at their financial statement and compare it to their operating expenses, and that clearly wasn't done. And the review by the accounting firm makes that clear, that what they were doing was not an audit. It was a review of gross revenues. So the first motion we would ask is that you authorize staff to work with your staff to try to collect those unpaid fees and perhaps negotiate with Comcast on the terms of their repayment. The second motion would be to authorize staff, again working in conjunction with your staff, to begin franchise renewal discussions and negotiations, which would occur sometime in August or later.
Anything else, Gary?
I'm free to answer questions, if I can.
Annette and Pam, did you guys want to come up and if you have anything else to add to the conversation? Whoever gets there first gets to speak first. You win.
Okay. Pam Berrien. I think the only thing I would add is a clarification on the emergency channel override problem. Apparently, it was operational about 3 years ago. Our Metro TV Channel 21 staff at LCOG do test the system, usually in or used to test it in like a 2 a.m. They run the system and then have a banner across the bottom of all channels saying this is just a test. When this new staff, Neil Moyer, went to do the annual test, as his predecessors done, that's when he found out there were new staff at Comcast who didn't know anything about that and went to do what our records had indicated should be done in terms of the process, and it was not operational. So that is how we discovered it was not operational during one of our tests.
I think Gary covered it very well. I would say that the staff obviously is very interested in being able to pursue the reconciliation of the franchise fee payments to date so that we can close those out before hopefully we begin the renewal negotiations. And my understanding is this would be a similar 10-year contract, so to speak, with Comcast. So our ability to address your concerns and make sure that we have a successful negotiation is our goal. So if there's particular items that we haven't highlighted here that you're interested in addressing, we would like to know about those, but we have plenty of time to get additional information from you. So I think that's about all, just to get started.
All right,
basically.
we have two motions, so we'll take them in order, and discuss one each independently. And so I'll entertain a motion for staff to take steps to collect the unpaid franchise fees and negotiate with Comcast on terms of.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on that item, which is separate from the negotiations on the renewal. Pat?
Yeah, Pam, we worked on this a long time ago.
Yes.
1996.
Yes.
97.
Time flies.
And, back then, I remember specifically in city council meetings asking about cable competition and how we make it a level playing field so that Comcast and, say, DirecTV are paying the same amounts as far as operating a cable system. And the answer has always been the same, and it's never really been fully satisfactory to me. Because DirecTV, for instance, the time it was a discussion I had with David Kelly, and he said Comcast has no competition. And quite frankly, everybody knows Comcast does have competition. And just to review, I've not asked this question for quite some time, but DirecTV and Dish they don't pay any franchise fees, right?
They do not use the public rights-of-way for their infrastructure.
They're providing the same service to the same people who turn on the TVs, but Comcast, because they are using our right-of-way,
Yes,
are paying a fee that their competition is not paying.
yes, and they're paying their
They're
own.
always saying that that doesn't affect a level playing field in terms of cost of operating in a particular.
Well, the DirecTV folks, that would be an interesting, discussion to have with them, DirecTV and Dish. They have their own operational
DirecTV
expenses.
won't even do Pac-12 network.
Yeah.
Don't try talking about it.
Yeah, they have their own fees to pay on the federal level in terms of their licensing that relate to their operations, and Comcast has fees that relate to our own jurisdictional operations.
I understand.
Yeah.
And the fact is, and we, when it was Sean Bowles and me and Nancy Nathanson with the committee, and we met for a long time, maybe 2 years even, before we came up with the telecommunications ordinance that has evolved since then. But at the time, it was a groundbreaking ordinance that the city of Eugene put forward. It's true that a lot of other jurisdictions did our ordinance and modeled theirs after our ordinance, right? Yeah, that's all good stuff. And, quite frankly, and folks from Comcast are here in the audience, I have problems with Comcast almost daily, but it's more problems to do with me being incompetent in using the technology rather than compression of signal. And I'm curious about this compression of signal issue, the compression of channels, and we have independent experts who verified that.
Can you hold that question for the next motion?
Oh, okay, I can do that. But anyway, I'm not, as I was in 1996 and 1997 with my discussion with David Kelly, and probably more like 1998 or 1999, I still am not satisfied that we have an operator providing the same service that is being assessed fees beyond what the other operators are being assessed. I still am not satisfied with that. As I wasn't, golly, that's 20 years ago now. So I have decades of dissatisfaction here.
So this motion's about the franchise fees, and at the table on page 3 of the memo outlines the amount, which is about a little less than $400,000. Does that include the $35,000 for the review study?
I don't think so.
It's
Doesn't seem to. I don't see it anywhere.
I don't think so.
So that'd be on top of that.
broken out.
Does not include the 35.
I don't see it.
No, it doesn't.
So we're talking about about $400,000, a
400.
little over that for a total,
Little total.
for all 3 jurisdictions, broken out by various amounts. But, and again, this is for franchise fees for using the physical right-of-way in the 3 jurisdictions, as opposed to any other kind of fee for service. Okay.
The total that they gave included the $35,000 for the review.
It does. Okay. So it's like.
And I told you the franchise fee underpayment was around $390-some thousand.
393. Okay. Anybody else got any other questions before we vote? All right. All those in favor? I'm sorry, you're out of order. This isn't a public hearing. You had a chance to, well, we don't have a provision for comments from the audience in this, for this commission.
You don't want comments on specific subjects to respond to?
Yeah, I know who you are. Sure, we can allow a public comment before we take a vote on this and the other, since we didn't provide for that, we usually do. So before we vote on this first motion, why don't you go ahead and take 3 minutes?
Yeah, I apologize for not knowing the procedures here. I'll keep that in mind. My name is Tim Goodman, Director of Government Affairs with Comcast. I've managed the franchises down here for a little over 2 years now, since Sanford, in a way, retired. And we've been with Comcast about 5 years. Just wanted to respond really quickly to some things regarding Mr. Meacham's report. He had 6 items on page 5 that I'm just going to quickly run through because I know I only have a few minutes here. Since I've been with the company 5 years, we've gone through 5 audits, 5 other jurisdictions. 2 of those were negotiated. There was a difference of opinion between our auditors and the jurisdiction's auditors. We were able to come to agreement on those. 2 of those, 2 other ones, we agreed fully with what the auditor came up with, and we just signed an agreement and paid it. The third one, City of Portland, our largest franchise, that came back with no issues whatsoever, and so it was done with. So just wanted to let you know we are willing to work with you and get this thing resolved. Our auditors have already reached out to your auditor to get details so we can find out where any discrepancies are. So just want to let you know we are on this, and we will work with you like we will with anybody else.
Although we're not saying it's an audit, it's a review.
Okay, so, but your auditor is doing an audit on another jurisdiction, one of the largest counties in the state. What they asked for was verbatim the exact same things they're calling an audit up there. So they may not have drilled down, but they ask for everything, if not more, than any other consultant does when they audit us. So just wanted to be clear on that. So when we saw all the information that they asked for, then we would deem that it's an audit. And being in Eugene, I think it's appropriate to say if it, looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And so that's where we were coming through on that. But just quickly, just on the other things, the fact that, it's been described here that we were unwilling to work with staff, we were misleading our customers. That simply is not true. We don't operate that way. And in regards to, for instance, regarding the compilations of complaints, we keep those complaints. All the ones that come from Pam or any of the other offices, we keep all those. In fact, I keep an email record myself of those. So we have all those complaints. We've never been asked for a compilation. If somebody asks us for that, we'll give it to you. No problems, no questions. I mean, that's the requirement of the franchise, is that we keep those compilations for 3 years, and if asked, provide them. We've never been asked at all for a compilation of this. So, and I know I only have 3 minutes. The emergency services ability, that is up and going. I checked with that this week to make sure it's up and going. We have a policy in how it works. We have even picture diagrams on when your people come over to our head end, what they need to do to record messages and such. So that's up and going. But we will reply to this formally, written, and we got this last Thursday. Wasn't really enough time to put together a full formal response to this, but wanted to leave you with, we'll work with you on all of these issues and get those resolved, and look forward to getting a renewed franchise with y'all.
Great, thank you. Sure. Again, the motion is to start the process.
Sure.
With that, we'll get back to some of the other comments when we come to the next motion. But so we have a motion on the floor to have staff take steps to collect unpaid franchise fees and to authorize the staff to negotiate terms of payment. All those in favor say aye.
A clarification on the motion. You said that this is starting the process, not, can you describe the process from this point forward?
Well, it's authorizing them to take the steps to begin that.
And then what are the steps after this then?
Well, the first motion is try to recover the fees, not just for the franchise fee underpayment, which we believe exists, but also for the review that the accounting firm did. The second motion would authorize...
Still on the first motion, what are the subsequent steps?
What do you do after that?
To negotiate with them to get the repayment. That's part of the first motion.
So you'll meet, have conversations, and try to work through these issues and negotiate
Correct.
A settlement.
Yes. We've
As
done that
done with other folks.
Yes, we've done that in the past with Comcast.
Okay. Is that clear?
Not really, no. It's,
What more?
It's kind of, you're going to have negotiations with them. How do you do that? I mean,
Well,
They seem to have issues with your report, and consequently, I don't believe we have complete information in the report. That's nothing to do with, recovering the franchise fee. But I just wanted to, what do you, in 1 week we will call them, 2 weeks we will meet with them? What is the time frame for the?
First step would be call them. I guess they indicated that they would be submitting a formal response to this memo. And I think that would, at least as it relates to the franchise fees and the review, that would be what we would focus our timeframes on. We would meet with them, see what the disagreements were, and then work out a settlement.
So we've been asked to pass a motion prior to knowing what the disagreements are.
Well, you're not approving any settlement. You're just authorizing us to talk to them and to work towards a settlement. We would have to bring back the settlement to the commission.
Okay.
And then the settlement will be brought back to the commission,
Yeah.
cable commission.
And then I assume to the individual jurisdictions after that.
Commissioner Lykin?
So my question is, why a review instead of an audit?
Excuse me?
Why a review instead of an audit?
Well, my understanding was the review covers more things than just gross revenues. We looked at service quality, consumer satisfaction, whether the franchise agreement provisions have been followed by Comcast.
So you're only talking financial audit then? What about performance?
Well, that's part of the review.
There's two different audits. One's financial, one's performance. So which one is this?
Well, this review, which we did, covered some of the financial activities, just the gross.
Performed it?
Excuse me?
Who performed it?
It was the consulting firm, accounting firm of Ashpaw and Skolko,
And they're from where?
New York. They do this as a matter of practice. So they have experience with the cable industry as well as FCC regulations.
Audit just sounds more formal than review. That's why I brought that up. So.
And an audit is much more in depth. We are arguing.
If I may, the contract, the franchise agreement uses the term review.
Use the term review, but is this an actual audit?
Well, the franchise agreement and the regulations differentiate between an audit and a review. And who pays?
Pam?
At the time of the last renewal, we placed ourselves with Comcast on a path towards a mid-year performance review, which includes a fee review of the right-of-way use fees. And so it came under a particular provision of the franchise that Milo quoted. And so we set ourselves in agreement and negotiated that path. When it came to that mid-year point, we kicked in our request for proposals using that particular provision, which we had all agreed that we would do. Now, I think if the words audit were ever used, it was kind of as a verb and not that we were going to, that we were going to kick in the audit provision of the franchise. So we were kicking in the fee and performance review portion of the franchise. That's a little difficult.
So, I'm sorry, if I may, there's the performance review. That's a review of how well they provide the services that they provide. And no such performance review happens with the non-franchised service providers.
This particular agreement is on the following the Negotiated Cable Act provisions and other provisions that we negotiated with Comcast. And because we have no other cable provider here, we would not kick that in. That we can regulate.
So we have service providers who sell to the same advertisers and sell to the same customers. Okay, never mind, that's fine.
Who don't use physical right away, which is the purpose of franchise. Any other questions or comments? Sid?
No.
Okay. Sean? Christine? All right, with that,
All those in favor of the motion, which is to have staff take steps to collect the unpaid franchise fees and also negotiate the repayment and bring that back to the commission for approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Carries. The second motion, I'll entertain a motion, put it on the table, to authorize staff to work with jurisdictions to open discussions with Comcast concerning the franchise fee renewal for that.
And we need to leave before quarter past, so may I ask the first question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, after this gets on the table. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just
to be first.
I've raised my hand first too, so it's official. So this is this motion then is to authorize or to recommend authorization of a beginning of a contractual discussion. And a part of that will be to receive the response to the memo that we have before us. Is that correct? A part of the discussion, a part of the negotiation with the cable provider will be to respond to the discussion, respond to the memo, respond to their response to the memo. Okay. Okay. I'm not going to talk much about the memo, but I have some really serious concerns with this memo and the way it's written, and I had them. Yeah, a part of it is we have, let's see, independent experts who we don't know exactly who they are. Or
I don't know who they are. Milo does.
Okay. And what makes them experts again? See, we don't know. So how can we be asked to really move forward on this if we don't even know what this memo is telling us? So.
Well, that's going to be a part of the discussions. We'll talk to Comcast, and they may provide information that would indicate that they don't overcompress any channels, and then it would be our burden to disagree with that if we had other data.
Excellent. Then, Mr. Chair, I'll be leaving probably before the vote occurs on this, but I would be a yes vote on this, and bearing in mind that this is a discussion that's ongoing, and that the questions the brief questions that Mr. Goodman, thank you, not Goodwin, that was Glenn, was Goodwin. Yeah. That'll be a part of the ongoing discussion in response to their allegations that this is not factual. Okay. All right. So if I leave, I would have been a yes.
Hopefully we'll get a vote before that. Mayor Lundberg and then Sean quickly.
I think the pivotal piece for me is the information we're going to obtain after negotiating the franchise fees, because the questions that are in that information that was put together in the memo, those are going to answer questions like the complaint issues, this issue, that issue, is I would want to see all of that information of when we see anything about a new franchise, because that's a pivotal piece for me in approving a franchise and how it gets approved.
Sean?
I think I'm going to agree with the mayor about information here. I mean, I was reading this, but then hearing the comments, my tone changed. I was kind of disappointed when I kind of heard Comcast's response about not getting out, questioning how factual this is. From a franchise perspective, I'm concerned with everything that's on the list, and I'm looking forward to good responses. My confession is I am a cord cutter, right? And some of those issues do, play into it. But I think getting a good discussion going back and forth is going to be the key part to getting a good franchise agreement.
Pat?
And just a part of my question, the six points, which will be a part of the negotiation, I would expect. Number 2 is that Comcast has been misleading subscribers, is in the statement. It doesn't say they may have been. It says they have been misleading subscribers. Comcast says they have not been misleading subscribers. Seems like that's going to be an interesting discussion. You say they have. They say they haven't. Have they? Haven't they? We don't know based upon what we're listening today. And let's see. Comcast has failed to keep its emergency service channel override. Comcast says that its emergency channel service override is functional. You say they haven't, they say they have. So this seems to be a pretty clear discussion that needs to be had. Is this true or is this not true?
It was just corrected.
So it is working then?
I was giving the history of that it had not for the 10 years been unoperable, but when we did the testing, we discovered it was, and we had been for months or over longer than that, longer than a year, been trying to work with Comcast to get it operational. And if he is saying, Mr. Goodman, that it is just operational, and Neil Moyer at Channel 21 emails me to that effect too, that's wonderful.
Okay. And my point, Mr. Chair, is that the negotiation should be fairly simple as far as factuality. Is it true or isn't it true? And at the end of the day, we'll know if it's true or if it's not true. Otherwise, the negotiation's not finished. Thank you.
Mayor Piercy, then we'll vote.
So I just want to say this. I think that we have people employed by us who say this is the way it went, and I would think that I would have faith in them unless I have some evidence otherwise. So what I would say about this is, yes, we should see the answer and get the explanation from our staff. But I'm not going to jump to any conclusion that our staff have misrepresented anything unless there's some real evidence, and any real evidence that that's happened. So I just want to be clear that certainly I can see the difference in the way people are presenting, but we don't know what the reality is until we check on it. And we shouldn't, seems to me, appear to assume wrongdoing by the people who work for us unless we have a reason to do that.
Nor would I ever. Nor would I ever.
All right. Any further comment or discussion? Oh, with that, there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed? Carries. And with that, we are adjourned.
Oh, you want to? You want to try it?
Pardon?